Hello, and welcome to another weekly update. Hope you're doing well. Feels all over the place. We've just had a really busy weekend at home. Birthday celebrations and lots of people round. It's been wonderfully normal, which is nice. And now the start of a new week. And we're in that build silence, I think. That's what it feels like right now. You know, we've got building coming up for probably 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, right at the end, sort of end of May. And in terms of like new things that are happening, it's gone quite quiet, I think. So that's fine. We've still got things to talk about. This is now the time where we can start to think about, you know, what we think is coming at build and what we can expect to see at build. Interesting times, especially for developers, I think, in this space, in the team space, because there's been quite a few, you know, if we look at where Teams is now compared to where it was a few years ago, obviously that's been a huge change and we're still all adapting to what that looks like and what hybrid working is. But also, so there's that side of things for developers and the tooling given to developers to, you know, support apps in meetings and more meeting experiences. But also, I think we're seeing some of the more meta stuff, like the metaverse stuff, that we'll kind of start to see coming with things like mesh and augmented reality. And so that's a kind of whole side of things that I think are worth keeping an eye on. I think we'll see more about Loop at Build, I would imagine, because that's the stuff that's kind of been announced and it all ties in with that whole ties in with that mesh stuff in a way for me, is because it's kind of like collaboration and it's kind of instant updates and people working at, you know, distances away from each other but staying in sync. I think it'd be really interesting to see how Loop and Teams work together for developers. That's a thing that, you know, I've kind of really latched onto. We've got Loop and what's happening with Loop and those Loop components for developers, and there's not really been a lot of stuff in that space recently since the last announcements around Christmas time. I went to go back and find the old blog posts that got put out around the December timeframe around what's happening with Loop for developers, you know, what the developer story is for Loop. And at the time it was like, it's coming, but it's on the roadmap. We don't have anything to share right now. So I'm really hoping that there are updates for developers around Loop at Build. One question follow-up question then I have is, how does that impact Teams developers? So because Loop is in Teams as well now, so how does that work if I develop things against Loop outside of Teams? Can I make them work with Loop inside of Teams? So lots and lots of questions there, lots of things to think through and work out. But a lot of that stuff we're going to have to find out through the course of this year, probably, with what's happening at Build, and then maybe also at Ignite at the end of the year as well. And this stuff will get clearer as we go along. All right, let's talk about what's been happening this week, though, rather than all the future stuff. I did a blog post a couple of days ago around app validation for Microsoft Teams apps in the Microsoft App Store, or the Teams store for Microsoft Teams. This is kind of based on something that got recently published and updated, which is some guidance for developers submitting things to the App Store. And in that guidance, they call out 15 kind of key things. And if you go to the link, you can actually go and click on each of these to see sort of specific guidance. I haven't gone through each one. I've really kind of focused on, because it seems pointless, right? They've gone through each one and described it, so you can go there if you want to get all the detail about each one. What I wanted to do was just go through and highlight the ones that I see people doing and the mistakes that kind of come up for me most often, and the things that I thought were interesting and like worth calling out. Because a lot of the things that I've put in my list are things that you kind of have to know about, and they're not necessarily obviously things that you're doing wrong until somebody points them out to you and says, actually, the rules say you can't do this. Oh, well, that's an easy fix. I just didn't know about it. And so if I can remove some of those easy fixes that you just don't know about, you are less likely to get kind of rejected from the App Store in a way that will annoy you, because it's like, oh, I just need to make these really small changes and resubmit, and then now I've kind of wasted another week or whatever in the validation process. So it's things like here's one, right? So when you talk about Microsoft Teams in the app description or in the title or anything like that, the first time you talk about it, you have to call it Microsoft Teams. You can't just call it Teams. After you've called it Microsoft Teams, then you can call it Teams. But the first time you do it, you have to call it Microsoft Teams. Stuff like that will get you rejected from the App Store. And it's not very hard to fix. It's very easy to fix, right? But you just need to know about it. So if I can save you a couple of rounds of submission and then being rejected and kind of just shortcut that process a little bit, hopefully that will be helpful. This was an interesting stat I pulled out of the guidance. 20% of Teams apps are rejected because the testers don't have enough information. So there is a big box when you submit to the store. There is a big section, a free text section for how are the testers supposed to test your app? You know, like what are they going to use? What credentials are they going to use? Are they going to have to sign up to something else? If they're going to have to sign up, kind of do it for them and give them some credentials to use. Make sure there's an account. Make sure they've got everything they need. If there's test data, if they, some kind of backstory or understanding of how the app works, anything. Because real humans are going to test these applications. So you do need to provide enough information for somebody who is not familiar with your application and not even familiar with your domain necessarily. You know, if you're writing like an accounting app, then don't expect that the people testing it will know loads and loads about accounting. So you might need to kind of set up some test scenarios or explain some of the functionality of your app and tell them, you know, if you were to do this, this, and this, and this, then you can expect that the bot will send you a message the next morning. So stuff like that, right? Where they can quickly go through and start using your application without having to massively onboard a whole load of domain knowledge, because they're not going to do that either. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. So 20% is a lot, right? I think. So that is an area to really focus in on to make it super easy for people to test your application. And then some of this is like, I think people get caught up in this because it's like, well, I've got testers, I do my own testing, I don't need you to test my application, I know it's fine. That's kind of not the point. They're not testing for that kind of stake. They're testing, they want to use your application and they want to use as much of your application and experience as much of your application as possible, because they are looking for different things to the things you're looking at. You, I imagine, are looking at kind of break fix stuff, like, does my app do the business logic that it's supposed to be doing? That's an important one that only you can do, really. And also, is my app going to crash all the time? Now, the test team, the Microsoft Teams Store test team, they care about the crashing bit. They're not going to test business logic stuff. But what they are also going to look at on top of that is UI, fit and finish, professional. Like, does it look like a nice app? Does it look like it fits in Microsoft Teams? Is it consistent? Is the UI good? Is the flow good? You know, or is it a jarring user experience? Do users get stuck and can't navigate away from an area or something like that? You know. Are they seeing random and ridiculous error messages? So those are all the kind of things the test team think about, and it's slightly different from what your own test team might think about. And I put some other things in there, but yeah. So that's my blog post. You can go and check out. I'll put the description in the. I'll put the link in the description, so you can have a look at that. So that was one thing that happened this week. The other thing I want to talk about is kind of not really Teams development focused, but it sort of is, because I think certainly I've got a lot of value out of this, and it's more about how we work rather than the actual work itself. And this is a blog post on the Microsoft Teams community blog by Starley Hansen, all about notifications. And Starley is a great person to follow actually on social media and on YouTube and stuff like that, because he's got a whole series of videos all talking about kind of digital well-being, and it goes into real detail about digital well-being as well. So there's lots and lots of video content there. I think there's like 8 hours of content of just all about like the culture of work, smart working, digital well-being, doing all of that inside Teams. And one of the things Starley's always been really good at is being very intentional about capturing tasks, ordering tasks, and making sure that, you know, you're working the right way. And that's something that over the past year or so, I've really come to appreciate. I've really come to appreciate the value of working on the right thing and being intentional about spending your time in the most productive way possible or in the most right way possible for this time. That doesn't mean, getting up and working 100% until you fall asleep. It's the complete opposite of that, actually. It's planning your day so you are intentionally either working or relaxing or connecting or sleeping or enjoying or whatever else it is, but being intentional about your time and how you spend your time. So this new blog post kind of resonated with me, and this is all about notifications. So the title, which I love, is "Notifications is the number one skill everyone needs to master in the next decade." And in this blog post, Stade goes through some ideas that I think are worth trying out. And some of these you might read and think, that won't work for me. I can't possibly do that. I would challenge you to give it a go. So for instance, turning off the sounds for incoming emails and incoming messages and emails. That is a good idea. I do that. I batch my emails, so I don't look at my emails all the time. I've turned off all the notifications for emails, and I will check my emails in the morning, I will check them at lunchtime, and I'll check them last thing as part of my shutdown routine. In between that time, if something really important happens, you will find out about it. There's so many other mechanisms to get hold of someone now that if an email is sent that needs to be actioned within 3 hours, that's the wrong medium for it. And I don't feel bad if somebody sends me an email that needed to be actioned in 30 minutes time and they made no other attempt to contact me, like Teams or SMS or any of these things. I don't feel bad about not replying to that because email is the wrong mechanism for that. So I think that's a mindset shift that I think is beneficial to get into. So things like that. Things like curating your notifications, using quiet hours, all these really good ideas that are worth going through. And this is not to say, I know you know all these things. I know you know about quiet hours. I know you know about notifications. I know you know they exist. The point is, I'm not trying to tell you about them. What I want you to do is spend some time thinking about them and thinking about, could they work for me? And really being intentional about, what are my quiet hours? Are they the right times? And how can I set them for success? So more and more that's become this whole idea of managing your time well has become really important to me. And I've not really important just for importance sake. What I mean is I've found real value in doing it. And so it has made a direct positive impact to the amount of work I'm able to do and the quality of work I'm able to do and the type of the results I'm seeing and all the rest of it. So I don't know, free tip to you around productivity, I guess that was kind of a bit of a ramble as well, but kind of productivity inside Teams. And it's a Microsoft Teams community blog post, so it's still kind of on brand for this video, so I don't feel bad plugging it at you. I mean, I could go completely left field and talk about productivity for half an hour, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stop there and say, look, that's a good blog post to go and read. Go and read Stade's blog post, but spend some time thinking about how you can set your tools and your equipment up for success for you. Well, I wasn't expecting to go there when I hit record 15 minutes ago, but there we go. Okay, I think that's everything I want to talk about. It's not a huge week for news. Like I say, it's kind of to be expected. Next week might be more interesting. Next week will be more interesting, actually, thinking about what's coming. So, got that coming next week. In the meantime, I've got some blog post ideas and videos I might try and do this week as well. That'd be good. Whatever it is you're doing this week, I hope you're having a good one. I hope the sun is shining for you. If that's the right season for you, it certainly is for me, and it's making everything better. I'm definitely a sunshine person. Whatever you're doing, have a great one this week, and I will see you again next time.